Alumni Podcast with Tech and Prem.
You say they're playing a little bit too soft, whatever. When does that adjustment come from you, or when do you try to make
it? Came, we tried to communicate that early, that we had to get tighter. And but credit to them, they threw it and caught it better than we defended it.
So what happened there, Vic? If you realize you have to get tighter and maybe that's relayed, is that the players not doing it? Is it you not coaching it well enough?
It's probably me not coaching it well enough.
Then what do you have to do differently?
Coach it better.
It's the Fan Alumni Podcast. I'm Tech. He's Prem. We start with the Birds. You just heard Vic Fangio, the defensive coordinator. We have to coach it better, is what he said.
Accountability is good.
Well, it doesn't help after the fact.
No.
And then he went on to actually say, which is the most ridiculous, he went on to say, well, and also it would help if, we didn't just count on what we saw in the film room.
Yeah, well, everybody
knows. Adjustments.
Everybody knows with Baker Mayfield. I mean, this is probably common knowledge around the NFL. If you play up on the receivers and you take his first quick look away, he tends to struggle a little more. And they didn't do that.
No,
they played off the ball. It reminded me of Jim Schwartz in the late Jim Schwartz years.
Right. And you know what I heard all week leading up to the Bucks game was how Tampa, what they did in the previous week, they were not going to do against the Eagles. So the analysts knew it. Yeah. They knew it on the radio.
Right.
They knew it on the pregame live. Yeah. Why did Vic Fangio not know?
I don't understand him, man. I
Why
really
did Nick
don't.
Sirianni not know
look, you got two corners, and Slay has no common sense, but he's a great corner and on the field. But he has no common sense or wherewithal about team etiquette. But if you have guys like Slay and Quinyon Mitchell, who is clearly an NFL caliber player, we can see that already.
Yeah,
you have guys like that. I know that the receivers on Tampa are great receivers. So one of them's a Hall of Famer to be Mike Evans. You bump these guys. You play tough. You show them that we're going to punch you in the mouth. We're going to bump you off your route early. And that's what we're going to do.
And with Slay,
I don't understand.
The guy's been a perennial Pro Bowler and spent season after season, his whole career, as a man coverage corner.
Right.
You bring him here, you stick him in this zone
it's
nonsense.
Silly, man.
I don't get it.
It doesn't make any sense. Use your personnel to their strength. You play to the player's strength, right?
Fangio ain't doing that. And by the way...
No, and I'm surprised. I honestly, before the season, I thought it was going to be different. I thought he was going to be like, common sense, what do you do best? Let you do that best.
Yeah, and the same thing for Bryce Huff, by the way, because I saw
Horrible.
the numbers. I saw the numbers, though, last year with the Jets, and what he did coming from the left, what he did coming from the right.
Yeah.
Fangio never puts him coming from the right. He's actually better. He has better numbers coming from the right side. He does not put him in the right.
Did not know that.
I don't know why. Why would you look at a guy? Why wouldn't you say to a guy who's had success?
Yeah.
What was it that made you successful last season?
Right.
Let's do that.
It's like anything. It's not even. This is a universal concept.
It is. Yes.
If you have a car salesman that is better at talking to fat middle-aged men than every fat middle-aged man that comes in a car dealership, send them over.
Yes.
You have someone that's good with a pretty young woman. You send them over to all them.
Yes.
Why are we not playing to the strengths of our personnel?
I'll never understand it. It pretty much starts with. It's an organ. By the way, this is a deep-seated organizational issue. This organization has issues. I mean, this is not going away. You're not going to fix this over the bye week. The defense is atrocious, and I believe it starts really at the top. You can't just say Sirianni, Vic Fangio, and the players. Okay, well, what happened? Look at the players on the field.
Right.
You got to go to the top here. And this
Yeah.
is an organization that doesn't put emphasis on defense. They almost don't care. They put money in the wrong places. It's just, I don't get the organizational philosophy.
Well, the philosophy
defense.
is, I think, it's a two-edged sword here, because on one hand, you have a team that, other than Pittsburgh, New England, and I think Green Bay, you have more playoff appearances and wins than all other franchises over the last quarter century.
But at one point,
but on the
team
other hand,
did care about defense.
Yeah, right. That's
I'm
what I'm
talking
getting
about
at.
in this.
Yeah.
In the last 7 years.
Well, what I'm
where,
getting at
where
is
did
I
it
think
go?
I think they got too caught up in the whole like the league is different thing.
Yeah, I'll even say the last 5 years because look, and they had two top safeties, they had decent linebackers.
Yeah.
They when they won the Super Bowl, they had a decent defense. And
They
Schwartz
did.
was bend not break. I mean, that's what he was.
They still got laced in the Super Bowl
They
for
did.
33 points.
That's right.
the
So-
most that Brady's ever scored in a Super Bowl, and he loses.
and he loses. And that's just because of the greatest individual performance we've ever seen, and that's
Ever.
Nick Foles.
Ever.
But look, the defense is atrocious. It's maybe the worst I've ever seen. I counted 17.
No. The Asamoah defense is worse.
That was pretty bad,
It was
too,
pretty bad.
yes.
It was pretty bad.
I counted 17 missed tackles. Ray Didinger said he had 18. Vic Fangio said 15 was what they
well,
counted.
15, 14,
You ain't,
20.
you ain't winning nothing missing
Doesn't
that. those-
matter.
Yeah, you ain't
Doesn't
winning
matter.
nothing.
You know, I will say though that after getting steamrolled and being down 24-0 early, you know, they won 16-9 from there out. And the defense did clamp down a bit. They figured a few things out in the
Well,
second
Vic
half.
admitted that he called adjustments to be made early on, and it took a while for it to register on the field.
Now, why is that, right?
I don't know.
Why is
Why?
that? Because we all
Why is
have
that?
modern technology. We all have modern technology.
I
First
couldn't
off,
tell you for
I
the
don't,
life of me.
I don't like the whole defensive coordinator not on the field thing.
I hate it
Jim
too.
Johnson was like 72 on the sideline, yelling at his guys, getting his guys
running up and down.
running
the
up and
sideline.
down.
I
mean,
need that.
we
You're
do,
right about
we do,
that.
we do.
You're right about
you know,
that.
it's the days of like Buddy Ryan style defense. They should be playing 5 down linemen every week with this defense.
Yeah.
And if they did that and played bump and run and 5 down linemen, you know what? I feel like with these guys, they'd be more effective because they'd be playing more aggressive, confident ball.
I believe that.
I really do,
believe it.
Tech. I think that it's okay. And if you get beat for a few big plays because you're aggressive, you know what? At least you have an identity. And at least you're
Yeah.
probably stopping more plays than you're not.
Right. No, Nolan Smith is a first round bust, but I don't believe he's tried to put Bryce Huff in the proper position where he would succeed. And now you've killed the kid's confidence. Now I believe that the kid is going to be what he is for the rest of the season until you admit your mistake.
It's
and get
really
rid of him.
unfortunate, man, because
It
I was
is.
excited about Huff and Nolan Smith together. I thought Nolan Smith.
I thought this was a make it or break it for Nolan Smith, and we can see clearly that it's a break.
Yeah, well, you know, the problem is they're going to hang with him through his rookie contract.
Yeah, of course.
But I don't
That's
think
what Howie
I don't
does.
think they're going to give him a second contract at this point.
No, he can't get
Now
it.
look, guys can come
Now,
around.
Yeah, I was about to say it's early, and you don't know. He might pull it together. I just don't see any signs of life.
No, and I was going to say, too, I know we're going to get to, what are the Eagles, and I think they're just an average football team right now. That's what they've
Absolutely,
shown.
yes.
They're one drop from being 3-1, realistically. One drop and one coaching decision in that Atlanta game from being 3-1, and I never overreact after September football. I want to see Tech the next 5 weeks of real time. I want to review.
Well,
I'll know
gonna
in like
say this.
mid-November, like, what is this team? We'll know in mid-November.
I was going to say, I don't know if this can be fixed because I think they have some real serious organizational issues. But it's early. You come out of the bye week next week with a lighter schedule for about a month straight. This is where you turn the season around.
If you're going to do it, yes.
You win 4 straight. You go 6-2 and head into Dallas. You're in great shape. Who knows what Dallas will be by then? I think Dallas is actually going to right the ship as well.
Yeah,
But-
they're better than they've shown, too.
yeah, absolutely. And right now, I feel like they have a better quarterback. I look at Jalen Hurts as an average quarterback. Now, I'll say this.
Well, he's got a better QBR than Dak right now.
Yeah, but I'll say, just by the eye test, I'll say this. You got your top 2 receivers out, and the play calling and play designs aren't helping Jalen out at all. You decided
No,
to give
they're not.
Saquon 10 carries with your top 2 receivers out.
Absolutely goofy.
It's unreal. As much as I think Jalen hasn't been good, I want
He hasn't been terrible either.
But I want Nick Sirianni gone before I want Jalen even to
I hear
be
you.
considered to be gone
Well,
or
no,
replaced.
he's here. He's here, and this guy's going to end
Oh,
up.
I know,
He's
but-
going to end up top 3 all time in touchdown passes for the Birds. He's
Well,
already on his
listen,
way.
That may be the case. I'm just saying that if it continues to get ugly and uglier, I feel like the conversation will magnify and amplify about Jalen Hurts. Is he or is he not the guy? Quite frankly, I don't know what he is.
Well, he's
or
still
isn't
like
yet.
4th in the NFL in total yards. man.
I just don't know how good or how good he isn't. I don't know because I can't tell by the offense. I listen. People can blame Kellen Moore. I think Brian Johnson was the ultimate scapegoat. Now that I look at these things, I look at what Brian Johnson's doing in Washington.
Isn't that crazy? Isn't that crazy, man?
Well, it just goes to show.
Kid looks good.
Yes, and it goes to show that this. He's the scapegoat in this organization.
I hate to
he
say
was
it,
the
Tech.
scapegoat.
And you know me, I'm usually the sunny side up guy on the show, and you're usually the clouds and storm guy. But I personally feel like right now that the Washington Commanders might win the division.
I think they win the division. Yeah,
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah. Yeah.
Now, look,
I do.
maybe these are slight overreactions. It's only October.
Well, eventually,
4th.
the Daniels, he's going to come down to earth. Eventually.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, look at
Kind of like early Jalen Hurts. I mean,
and
it
C.J.
happens.
Stroud. Look how great C.J. Stroud was last year. He's come down to earth this year. I
Right.
mean, this is
This
is what happens. So it happens to
because the league
everybody.
catches up, defenses catch up.
Yeah.
Once you're on tape, just like with pitching, once a pitcher's got tape on what he does,
Yeah.
hitters catch up. It's
Exactly.
the same kind of thing.
And Jalen Hurts was doing these incredible things, but they were unlikely things that he was actually making happen. And we all know the more unlikely something is that does happen, as soon as that goes on tape, defensive coordinators clamp down on that stuff. And
Every time.
Hurts is not getting away with those plays that he was getting away with, and Sirianni still trots them out. When I see those plays come about, I know it's not Kellen Moore calling
yeah,
that. I know
honestly,
it's a Sirianni
I feel
situation.
I feel like I could call plays for this team
yeah.
and be
Just
better.
based off-
Although I will say we saw split backs the other day with Shipley and Saquon, and I got excited.
Yeah, me too.
When I saw that, I thought to myself, okay,
Yeah, I saw.
All right.
I saw it once.
saw it once.
First play of the game, and I never
As
saw
soon
it
as
again.
I saw it, I thought about you, Tech, because we talked about
Yes.
that in the preseason.
And I would have loved to have seen more of it. At least use Shipley more as a decoy. At least fool defenses. You're not even doing that.
I know it doesn't make any
It
sense.
doesn't make any sense.
I don't really know. I just don't know what they're doing, but I do know that it's encouraging, and we know that most Eagles teams in recent years don't drop that game to Atlanta that late. That was kind of a fluky loss. When you lose like that, they should be a 3-1 team. It's frustrating.
Yeah, they
'cause
should be 3-1.
You should be 3-1 right now, in spite of all the problems, in spite of all the turnovers, in spite of who's this guy, what is this, what is Nolan
But I
Smith.
blame Sirianni. You know,
Yeah, it has to be
You left a
coaching.
field goal on the board.
It's
That
coaching.
field goal wins that game
It's coaching.
against Atlanta.
And we talked about this through text as far as like what Pat Mahomes, obviously Jalen Hurts isn't Pat Mahomes, but since 2023, Pat Mahomes and Jalen Hurts had the same amount of turnovers, just about. I think Jalen has 2 more. They're the same quarterback since the beginning of last year. The difference is, in key moments, Andy makes the right calls, and Spags knows how to call a defense.
head coach is a major.
It's huge, man.
difference.
It's huge.
Because
Look,
Andy Reid and Pat Mahomes just win every year. And, this coach, I'm not saying Jalen Hurts isn't a winner, but when Sirianni said Jalen Hurts is a winner, I'm like, I don't know about that. I mean, look, I think the kid has a winning personality. I think he's got leadership.
well, yeah, his win-loss record is he's a
could-
winner, yeah.
I get it, but he hasn't won the ultimate goal. I look at Mahomes and he wins. He
Nah,
really
but yeah,
wins.
I hear you, man. But how many quarterbacks? This is just a simple question. I know it's probably a very small list. How many quarterbacks in their first 2 seasons as a starter win a conference? Dan Marino did it. Tom Brady did it.
Yeah,
Joe Montana didn't do it. John Elway didn't do it.
right.
A lot of these guys don't win conferences within their first 2 years. It's just uncommon.
Right.
It's a double-edged sword, though.
Yeah.
But it's uncommon. That's why I think the kid's
yeah,
a winner.
listen,
Because he's done it on the biggest stage, and he almost outplayed. Well, he did outplay Mahomes. The defense just couldn't get it done late in that.
Well, he
Super Bowl.
fumbled the game away, though.
that
Mahomes didn't
one.
do that.
Yeah, we got face masked on that same play. That wasn't called. That's not good air. But,
I hear you.
but my point is,
that's
I think he's a winner because he's already won a conference.
I look at this game, right, and I see the receivers, and I see, Paris Campbell, I see John Ross, and whatever, and I see those guys, and I'm like, well, that's better than what Wentz had, and Wentz won with those guys.
Yeah, yeah.
So
well, for a minute there, Wentz was even in 2019 when he got us into the playoffs. That was an impressive.
That's
December.
really what I'm saying.
That was an impressive
I'm
December.
citing that year because that year he didn't have Jeffrey.
But that was
He had-
still Doug
he had
calling plays,
nobody.
though. That goes back to coach, right? You were talking about Andy and
Well,
Mahomes.
that's a big
Doug
deal.
and Carson, they had a real thing. They had a real chemistry. They had a real play calling flow. And you saw it. And if he doesn't get popped in the back of the head, Eagles history is different. In that Seattle game,
I
that
get
playoff
it.
game, if Wentz doesn't take that hit again with Davion Clowney,
Yeah.
they win that game, obviously.
Sirianni's got to go. He's got to go. 'Cause
I agree with
that's
you.
what we all. That's what this leads up to.
On the simple fact that he took us to a Super Bowl, I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt of one more month of football, and I want to see a 3-1 October.
Well, he's going to finish the year.
Right, but I want to see a 3-1 October to personally not echo your sentiment. It's still too early for me to say get rid of the guy. I mean, it's still you had 3 new coordinators in 3 years, man.
I'm about 99% there.
I hear you, man. It's tough because when I hear him talk, I think to myself like I could conduct better press conferences.
I hate this guy.
I could do
talking.
better at press conferences than him. Like he's not firm. He's not confident.
No.
You have to be firm and confident to be an NFL
He
coach.
stutters because he's trying to think of what he's going to say next.
without
I hate it.
upsetting the brass.
Yes.
Exactly.
We'll see. We start the run of the month off with Cleveland at the link. Nick Chubb will be back, which isn't great for one of the poorest tackling
he'll be
teams
on a
I've ever
pitch.
seen.
He'll be on a pitch count though.
I don't care what the Browns look like. This will still be a tough game.
It will. The defense is good. They
Yeah,
forced
exactly.
turnover. They forced turnover.
Yeah, I mean, A.J. Brown will be back. Hopefully Devontae will. We'll see.
Yeah, but Watson has been horrible. Hasn't even thrown for 200 yards once.
Well, yeah, I mean,
he's-
it's trending to where they're going to pay him just to go away.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
Man? Oh, I said it though. I said it on our Twitter.
Yeah.
The kid will never win. You said it too.
No, yeah, he'll never
I think a
win.
lot of people
He'll
said
never
it.
win, yeah.
People in Cleveland are just they're a little clueless.
Yeah, as soon as he chose Cleveland, it was like, forget it.
Career done.
Done. Over.
Like the Raiders or the Jets.
Yeah, exactly. All right, we'll talk more birds when we hit the vet line with our guy, Matt Hamilton from FanDuel TV. But first, brought to you by the Fairless Hills Academy of Music, it's time for Vet Fact.
This is a vet fact.
Well, Tech, October 5th, 1992, Monday Night Football. Remember they had the helmets coming down and clashing on the screen,
The best.
animation.
Absolute best.
The Dallas Cowboys came in 3-0. The Philadelphia Eagles stood at 3-0. It was like the marquee game of the season at that point. And the Birds did not disappoint. In front of 66,572 fans at the Vet, which was probably like a windy October evening, the Birds would destroy Dallas. 31-7, Tech. It was 10-7 at the half. So
Yeah.
it was a tight first half. Nobody scored in the second quarter. Randall actually had a pretty pedestrian day throwing the ball. He was only 11 of 19 for 124 with a pick, but he scrambled for 43 yards and a touchdown. Herschel Walker, 19 totes, 86 yards, 2 TDs. Keith Byers added 25 yards and a touch. So they had 4 offensive scores, and of course they kicked a field goal. They held Emmitt Smith to 67 yards on 19 carries. This was a Super Bowl winning Cowboys team this year who absolutely destroyed the Bills in that Super Bowl.
Yeah.
And the Birds got the best of them on this night. Troy Aikman was only 19 of 38. Get this, Tech. 3 interceptions.
Yeah, the defense was massive.
Massive. Wes Hopkins with a pick. Byron Evans with a pick.
Woo!
John Booty with a pick. Just a phenomenal day. You add 4 sacks to that. The Minister of Defense, Reggie White with 2 sacks. Andy Harmon with a sack.
Andy Harmon!
The one and only Clyde Simmons
Oh, yeah.
with a sack. Just what a great night to be at the Vet. Fred Barnett, 5 catches, 76 yards. Very workmanlike. Hey, look, Michael Irvin had 4 for 105, including a 59-yarder. But the Birds still won because you know why, Tech? They forced 4 turnovers.
That's it.
They won the time of possession battle.
Yep.
And they forced the Cowboys into committing 9 penalties on the night. No doubt, a very frustrating evening for one Jimmy Johnson.
Oh, yeah.
We know the Cowboys got the last laugh that year. But on that night, October 5th, 1992, 9-year-old me was on my sofa very, very, very happy. October 5th, 1992, Birds 31, Cowboys 7.
There's no place like Philadelphia in October.
Line drive to right field. He is the hero.
That was a Tuesday in June, though.
Fly ball to deep right field. Score!
It has erupted here at Citizens Bank Park. Listen to this.
That's a weekday in May.
The 0-1 pitch.
Right back at him. Fires, and it's a shutout for Suarez.
That's April.
It is gone! Grand slam, Trey Turner!
I mean, it has been like this all season.
And JT gets one again, and the Phillies beat the Mets on a walk-off.
So how's October going to be at the bank this year? That's up to y'all, man. But I have a feeling what it's going to look like. Red October, baby.
There it is.
The Crocker.
The Phils.
It's Red October, man. I'm excited, Tech.
Yeah.
Get
look,
excited, Tech.
I'm cautiously optimistic.
All right,
I'm anxious. I'm nervous. Look, they ended up the 2 seed. The NLDS kicks off tomorrow and Sunday at 4:08.
Wow, great time.
Great time.
Middle of the afternoon.
Hopefully the week off helps. They're going into the postseason with basically 3 viable starting pitchers. But if you tell me, right, that the Phillies have a chance to win 3 out of every 4 games, I'll take it. I don't think they lose because of pitching, Prem. That will not be the reason they lose.
They probably have the best pitching in the whole field here.
But even if you give up 4 or 5 runs a game, I'm not going to blame pitching. What I will blame is the offense if they lose, because I believe that will be the reason they lose if they happen to lose.
I think that these guys, man, I just think it clicks into a different mentality.
I hope.
When you got a roster like this with a couple World Series champions already on the roster, even though it didn't happen here, we know that.
Right.
You got guys that have been tasting it for 3 full seasons now.
I get it.
They know what they have at stake here. Now, I will say this. Before the 80 Phillies won the World Series, did you know, Tech, that they lost 3 consecutive NLCS? 76, 77, 78.
Yes.
Then 79, they missed the playoffs.
Right.
And the 80 they won. So it's not uncommon for a team to taste it for 3 years and then not do it. It would be devastating, obviously, to our fan base. But I don't think that's the case with this group. I think this group they are primed, man. I think if they lose in the National League playoffs, my personal opinion is that the Padres are the only team in the National League field that they could maybe lose to.
Yeah.
Personally, it's my opinion.
I liken them to the Diamondbacks last year, even though, look, that they were a wild card team. Also, Padres are a better, more sound team than the Arizona team. But the reason why I liken them to them is because Arizona was the kind of team that you didn't really see coming. And I look at the Padres, like, yeah, you might see them coming, but if they beat the Dodgers, it's once again one of those, you got to be kidding me.
Well, you know what? That's actually a blessing if they beat the Dodgers, because that's the only team the Phillies won't have a home field against.
Right.
The Dodgers, because
you're right about that.
Even the World Series, they have a better record than any American League team.
But do the Padres scare you? And like do you think they'd lose a series against the Padres?
I don't think they lose a series. I think that it probably goes 7 games though.
Yeah,
I think you probably need Wheeler in a 7th game to beat the Padres this time. It ain't going to be 5 games like 2 years ago.
Right.
They got Arias now. That's one of the best hitters in baseball. Their lineup is strong, top to bottom, just like ours is, and their pen is as good as our pen.
Right.
That's the thing that really is the key in the playoffs. It always comes down to the bullpens.
Absolutely.
That's why we lost the World Series.
Yes.
Because that kid Helsley was unhittable.
Their pitching was just too good.
They were unhittable.
Like, and when you look back at the World Series, as disappointing as it was, it's like, well, they had too many guns. Their pitching was too unbelievable.
So good.
We didn't have the pitching they had.
No.
We didn't have the bullpen they had. So
now we do, though.
Comes down to.
Now we kind of do. Now the question I have questions about
Estevez.
Estevez.
They had 5 starters, Houston. They needed 4, but they had 5.
Yeah.
And Phillies have 3.
Talk about a fall from grace. Now, since that World Series, the Astros 7 straight postseason home losses in a row.
The Detroit Tigers don't even belong there. In August 10th, they were below 500.
Isn't it crazy? If I would have told you in June, the AL Central is going to be represented by 3 of the 4 ALDS teams, you'd be like, what are you smoking, Prem?
Right. Yeah.
The Tigers, that's a testament to how great baseball is, Tech.
I agree.
That's why the Nationals won the World Series 2 years ago. They were a losing team in July.
And plus, the Orioles completely collapsed. But before, because they started to collapse like the Phillies started to collapse. The difference is the Phillies got back in the right direction.
They had a strong last month.
And the Orioles never did.
They never did.
They never did. So,
it's a young team. That's why, Orioles.
Right. I look at the American League, beyond the Yankees and the Guardians, it always felt like it was kind of wide open. There was like 7 or 8 teams vying for all these spots. So the fact that it ended up being Kansas City and Detroit, and it was like, I wasn't super shocked, because when I was monitoring the standings all year in the American League, I kept saying, I have breakfast with my dad twice a week, and we're looking at the standings. I keep saying, there's like a bunch of teams knotted up in the American League.
The American
League is going to be interesting. I kept saying.
It was a great race, because, look, the Mariners and the Twins are out of it. Both of those teams held a spot for most of the season.
They had a good year.
Crazy, man. What a phenomenal sport. Baseball, really, when it comes to postseason races, with their adjustment now adding this third wild card, baseball truly is the best race of all the sports.
Now, we have to let the cat out of the bag because of what's going on, and what could halt this conversation right now is we still aren't 100% on who the Phillies play. We do this Thursday night. It comes out Friday morning. So and that's typical. Sometimes we actually do it on Friday and it comes out Friday.
Well, I'll say this. Listen, right now it's 2-0 Brewers.
Right.
So let's talk about it as if
Let's talk about the Brewers.
The Brewers
first.
are coming in, right?
All right, yeah.
I'm going to say the Brewers are coming in, because I think that their pen is going to hold on
I
to
would
this.
say the Brewers are coming in. Let's just talk both of them. Let's start with the Brewers.
What happens if Rhys Hoskins hits a blast his first
I'm
at-bat?
sure he will. I'm sure Rhys Hoskins, I don't know about his first at-bat, but I'm sure Rhys Hoskins will hit at least one home run in a series versus the Phillies.
I don't think it matters. I think the Phils win this series in 4 games against the Brewers.
I got it in 5. Against the Brewers,
Going 5,
I think the Phillies win.
You think they split the
in
first 4?
5.
Wow.
Yeah.
I don't know, man. Okay, maybe. They played tight games all year. Every game they played against the Brewers
now, they
was a
swept the
low-scoring
Brewers
game.
at some point
In
this
Philly.
year.
In Philly.
Yes, they did.
They were all low-scoring games, though.
So I'm not beyond thinking that they could just win, like you say, in 4 games or even sweep them. But it's playoffs. It's different. Let's just say 4 games. But I think it goes 5 against the Brewers. But I do think the Phillies beat the Brewers. I do think the Phillies can beat the Brewers.
Their pitching's better than New York's, though.
Especially their bullpen. Their bullpen is
pretty good.
Lights out. They got like 3 guys that I don't want to face. But let's talk about the Mets.
Don't be like Jack Fritz. Don't be like Jack Fritz.
No,
he's scared of the Mets.
Well, he's a little ridiculous.
Don't be scared of the Mets, Tech.
Well, he takes it a little far for my taste.
He does.
But I do not want to play the Mets, because I think the Mets are...
I hate that mentality.
Because we're the
Play
Braves.
anybody.
I look at it like we're the Braves and they're the Phillies.
But we're not. We're the Phils and they're the Mets.
Yeah, but
they're
it's
gonna
not.
met it up
Look,
regardless. They're gonna met it up.
I hear you could say that, but this feels different. Since the break, they are the best team in baseball.
I think it's a moot point, because I think that the Brewers are gonna hold on to this.
Okay, well that's fine.
6 outs to go.
But I'm just going, for the sake of if we wrap the show and the Mets storm back and win
And get 3 in the 9,
right,
and win 3-2.
Hey, like Milwaukee did the other night.
That was impressive.
It looked like it was
they
over.
were on the ropes.
Yeah, it looked like it was
you
over.
got this 20-year-old kid hitting the bomb.
Now look, that's what worries me about the Phils. Like, I don't want to see it be like 3-0 or 3-1 or 4-1, and it takes 9 innings for the Phils to get going. You got to get to the 4th pitcher to get.
But that's who they are sometimes.
I know.
They'll put
I
up
know
a crooked
that's who they
number.
are.
They'll put up a crooked number any given inning.
I
you have
get
to be
it.
up by 5 runs, and maybe that isn't even enough to be up on the Phils for good. They showed you that this year.
I'm going on record right now as it stands. It's 2-0 Brewers right now on this Thursday night, and I look at it like I would rather play the Brewers than the Mets, just because the vibe, the feel of going into a series at home against Milwaukee feels like they'll beat Milwaukee.
Here's some nostalgia for you. How great would it be, just given what happened in 2008, if the Phils knock off the Brewers in the NLDS? And the Dodgers in the NLCS.
I think.
Isn't that like, do you pay attention to that kind of stuff?
That's how.
I love that kind of stuff.
That's why I think I feel this vibe, because I've seen it play out before.
Yeah.
Where we play Milwaukee, obviously completely different franchise now.
Right,
but
right,
like,
right.
I've seen that.
And then the
I've seen
Dodgers.
them beat the Brewers, and then they go and they play a team like or the Padres. How about a couple years ago with the Bryce is going to lose, Manny's going to cruise. Remember that?
Oh, those guys.
Remember those guys?
That's what's in.
That's what's in. Right.
As gay as it gets.
Yes, and since then, what have the Padres been? Losers in the postseason, and definitely
Well, their
against
whole
the Phillies.
franchise history.
Yeah. So, but that video was so damning for that franchise, and I look at it
Horrible.
like it's part of the reason why I don't worry about a team like the Padres, but it would. Hey, look, I don't really worry about a team like the Dodgers either. It seems like we're good against them. We're even good in LA, where we stink. In all other West Coast
Historically,
places,
though,
we're
yeah.
good there.
We play good in LA.
I don't know why that is.
You know what it is?
A thing.
It's historical payback is what it is, because, when I mentioned a minute ago, 2 of those NLCS, that 3 in a row, 76, 77, 78,
Yeah.
2 of them back-to-back were to the Dodgers.
Ah.
We got their numbers since the late 70s.
There you go. If we play well in LA, and by the way, the Eagles do that too. The Eagles play well in LA. It's hard to explain
I do.
why we play well in LA, but we just do. And the Phillies
I'll take it.
have played well in LA. So I'm not so concerned with what's going on out west. It's more about the Brewers or the Mets. I look at the Brewers and I'm like, well, in my mind, I've seen that play out before. The Mets could break our hearts, and it could be early. A first-round exit, it would be devastating. The city would be devastated, and
not happening.
they would be calling for wholesale changes. They would be calling for overhaul
It's so
of what's
ridiculous.
going on.
It's not
Guys are
happening.
aging, and you're going to see. I'm telling you, let Schwarber start off, against the Mets, 2 straight games or whatever. Let him start off 0-4 or 0-3. Let that
He's
happen.
hitting a leadoff home run. in
I
game
get it.
one. We
Listen,
all
I
know
want to see
that.
it. And by the way, you know what I don't want to see, no matter who they play, Saturday 4:08. I want to see a 1-2-3 inning from Wheeler, and then I don't want to see strikeout, ground out, strikeout from the Phils in that. I don't care about. Well, it's first time through the. I don't care. I don't want to see it. I do not want to see
you never wanna
a
see it.
1-2-3, 0-3 inning to start off the playoffs, to start off the postseason. Off of losing 2 or 3 to a nothing Nationals
The
team
Phils
who was
win game
really
one.
pathetic team.
Phils win game 1, 4-2.
All right, I'm just saying I don't want to see
On the record,
All right,
4-2.
I'm just telling you, no matter how it ends, I don't want to see it begin. Strikeout, ground out, strikeout.
The Phils win game 2,
or
8-3.
strikeout, single, ground out, strikeout. I don't want to see that. I don't want to see a 1-2-3 or a gentleman's 1-2-3.
We got a whole trajectory.
I don't want to see it
innings
for the
already.
bottom of the first. I do not want to see it. It's
But
bad
what
juju.
if I told you it's going to be strikeout, ground out, strikeout for the first 5 innings, but then in the 6th inning they score 6 runs? Would you sign up for that? Of course you would.
Yeah, I mean,
because that's their identity. That's who they
you know,
are.
I hate it that it's their identity.
That's their identity. I told you all year on Twitter. That's what they do.
I know.
And not every night, but a lot of nights, that's what they do.
And I don't love it.
I know, but that's what they're capable of, because these guys, it's contagious one way or the other.
I know.
And it gets contagious both ways.
Yeah.
That's what you hate.
I hate it.
Is that it gets
Absolutely hate
contagious
it.
both ways.
Yes, it does.
I think these guys, man, they're it's a different beast the postseason. The energy is different. The vibe is different. The feel out there is different. Everything is just different. It's October. We know what they've come close to doing. They know what they let us all down last year. These guys were born to win World Series, Tech.
All right. Listen, I hear you. I'll go with you on it. I'll go with you on it.
Fair enough. It's the least I can
I'm
ask
cautiously optimistic. It's tempered optimism. It's tempered. It's cautious. But it's there. I'm anxious. I'm a little nervous. I'm a little more anxious than nervous, especially. Listen, you know what? My anxiety to nervousness ratio switches depending on the team. If it's the Milwaukee Brewers, then my anxiousness is like 70% and my nervousness is 30%. If it's the Mets, it's 70-30 the other way.
Okay, all right.
So
that's fair. I mean, I don't want to
you know.
play the Mets either. I hear you, but I think that, like we said, we record the show on Thursday night, so we don't know. Even though you're hearing this, and you know,
I mean, typically
we
it's
think the
Thursday.
Brewers are. I think the Brewers are going to hold on.
All right. Well, there you have it. Saturday afternoon, 4:08.
Yeah.
that's when it kicks off. We hope to see Rhys Hoskins return to the bank for the playoffs. And how about Rhys Hoskins making the playoffs his first year with another squad? I'm happy for him, and I'll be glad to see it.
You bought my tickets, Tech, for game one?
No.
Not yet?
No.
Well, make sure you get on StubHub soon
expensive.
because,
They're incredibly expensive.
I know. I look too.
I will be watching
I can't do it.
on television.
But I will buy World Series tickets. I'll spend $2,000 if I have to. I'll go to the World Series.
Oh, my God.
I'll go to the World Series.
All right.
I'm going to take Dad. Yeah, take these 70.
All right. I see the light blinking. Let's go NFL and some birds
Yes, sir.
with our guy Matt Hamilton from FanDuel TV on the vet line next.
Vet alumni. And now it's the Vet Line.
Why don't you answer your phone?
Joined on the vet line by Matt Hamilton, on-air producer for Up and Adams show on FanDuel TV Tech, and
Sir.
also the quarterback coach at New Rochelle Varsity Football.
Yes.
Matt, thanks for joining us again.
Appreciate you guys having me. Excited to be here.
Yeah, definitely. Well, we're excited that football is back and in full swing. Obviously, as Birds guys, 2-2 isn't what we want or expected. But as an outside of Philly guy, what's your take on the Eagles? Where do you think this season might be headed for them?
Man, it's hard to tell where things are headed. After last year and the way things kind of ended. You're hoping for a little bit of a faster start with all those changes, bringing in the new coordinators, bringing in Saquon. But really, I'm not concerned about the offense. I think it's the injuries more than anything. I mean, you lose A.J. Brown and Devontae. Well, what do you expect to happen? Right. Saquon's been fantastic. He's looked as good as he ever has, and I think that's the most encouraging thing. You're getting A.J. and Devontae back at some point. So that's super encouraging to me. And I think, some of the issues we've seen with Jalen with the turnovers, those will cut down. I mean, he has to make better decisions, but I think those will also be remedied when you have your full complement of guys back. The thing that concerns me so far is the defense.
Yeah.
I mean, there's been no semblance of a pass rush. The Hassan Reddick trade has looked like a disaster for both sides somehow in this. But yeah, that's the bigger area of concern. I think this offense is going to get it going and figure it out and be among the best in the league once everybody's back. But yeah, the defense has some work to do. They
sure do. We had a press conference with Vic Fangio this week, and he took accountability for not adjusting, which I don't understand. As a quarterback coach, taking accountability, as is important. What would you say, going back to Jalen, what would you say as his quarterback's coach to try to cut down on the carelessness with the ball?
I think it's just he's trying to do too much sometimes. I feel like there's a thing with him. We know the type of guy that he is somebody who is very accountable, who takes things seriously. And I think he takes that contract seriously. I think with that, there's a feeling that he has to make a ton of plays, and that he has to, when they're missing things, he has to take it upon himself to make up for it. And I would tell him to play within himself, to take what's there, to not force it, to know when a play is dead, and just take the incompletion, the throwaway, and move on to the next down and live to see another down. And again, I think, he takes a tremendous amount of the pressure on his shoulders. And I do think that's a part of it. I think when we've seen him at his most successful, he's distributing, he's taking what's there. He's not trying to do too much. And I think that's, we see it even with the greatest quarterbacks in this game, even with Mahomes, sometimes he gets into situations where he's trying to do too much, even for somebody like him who can make every play in the world. He's at his best when he's taking what's there too. We saw it in that Super Bowl run this past year where he kind of cut back on some of the crazy stuff he was doing and said, "Hey, we have a great defense. My run game's doing its thing. Like let me just play within myself." And I think that's what Jalen has to get back to a little bit. And it'll be easier to do when you have all of those superstars back around you.
Yeah, obviously you got to have a full complement around you. Now, a lot of great quarterbacks through the years have always had full complements around them, going back to, the Randall Cunningham mobile quarterback, Donovan McNabb mobile quarterback. In your opinion, Steve Young, John Elway, of these great mobile quarterbacks we've seen throughout, say, the last 30 years or so, who's your personal favorite and why?
Oh man, that's a great question.
I thought it would be.
I mean, I'm always partial to Steve Young for one, just growing up watching him and being a kid. And the first Super Bowl I can remember watching was that Niners-Chargers Super Bowl.
Yes.
So that always stuck out. He also happened to go to my high school.
Oh, wow.
Wow. So he was I met him as a kid, and, he was kind of the guy you just looked up to in my town. So always partial to him. I mean, Randall, watching him growing up, sorry, I'm going to mention that growing up a Giants fan, but watching Randall torture the Giants
Right.
for years. And then what he did in Minnesota, always, have a great appreciation for him as well. Those are the two guys I think that I kind of grew up admiring as far as the mobile quarterbacks, for sure.
Yeah, and that Super Bowl, I mean, I think Steve Young threw for 6 TDs.
Tremendous.
3 to
Yep.
Jerry
Yep.
Rice, 3 to Ricky Waters. My father bought like 20 cheeseburgers from McDonald's for that Super Bowl. I'll never forget. We had a stack of cheeseburgers on the table.
Oh, there you go.
Had to get that from you. I had to find out because Steve Young was one of mine too, for sure.
Love Steve Young. All right. Going back to the defense. Through these first 4 games, we've seen how bad they look. Matt, in your opinion, is this fixable? Is this defense fixable?
I think it is. I think the pieces are there. I think the biggest concern and the thing that you can't fix is I think Slay's age is starting to show a little bit.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think CJ Gardner-Johnson is having a rough time. Not that he's necessarily old, but he doesn't look quite like the same player from a couple of years ago either. He's gotten torched a few times, as we've seen. I think Quinton Mitchell so far looks good to me. I think he's going to be a really good player. But it's hard to fix. Slay is not what he was a couple of years ago. I think it's been clear through these first couple of weeks. But again, as far as the pass rush, honestly, if they get that pass rush going, it's going to make up for some of the issues that they're having on the back end. Because as we know, you have to sit there and cover all day. It's not going to work. Even if you're the best corner in the league, it's not going to work for you. So you got to generate more pressure. And it really starts, the guy that you look at with what he was able to generate with the Jets last year and what they've hit is Bryce Huff. He has to get it going. And there's no reason for his lack of production right now. That's the guy
Through 4 games,
counting on.
He has a 0 all across the board on his stat line, and he has 1 assisted tackle. I think
It's
2.
remarkable.
2 assisted tackles. I think he had 1 this last game
On a milk carton.
I mean, who's to blame more for this? Because I looked at the stats from that he played from the left side in New York last year and from the right side, and he was productive from the right side. And Vic Fangio exclusively lines him up on the left side. Who's to blame for his lack of production? Is it him? Is it the system? What do you see there?
Yeah, I think that's a great point. I think the system and lining him up on the side that he's less comfortable on is not doing him any favors. And I think, when you look at it as a coach, you got to put your guys in the positions that they're going to succeed in, the best positions for them. That's your responsibility as a coach. And Fangio isn't doing that right now. As much success as he's had and as great a coordinator as he is and the clout that he has for what he's done, you can't just say, this is what I do. This is how you have to play. You got to adapt to your personnel.
Yes.
So I definitely put a lot of that on him, but you got to also, you can't take it all off the player either. You got to produce. You're getting paid like that. You got to produce. But again, I do put it more on Fangio and how he's utilizing him. And I'd love to see him work in some more pressures too. They're bottom 10 in the league as far as blitz percentage. If you're not getting home, you got to dial things up a little bit. And I think it'll also be easier to do that when you have your full complement offensively back, because, when you can go, you get burnt on one, you can go get it back instantly with AJ Brown or Saquon.
Right.
It allows you to be more aggressive defensively. So, I know there's a lot of, there's some doom and gloom right now with the way that last season ended, with people thinking it's carrying over. But I really do think it has more to do with these injuries. When we were there, with Up and Adams, we did our training camp tour. We were there in Philly. You could tell that the vibe was a little different, that there was a reset there, that a lot of the issues that were going on last year maybe had to do with the coordinator, with the coordinators on both sides.
Right.
And I think especially offensively, there's this sense of kind of relief and renewed energy there. So I do expect them to get it going. I also, talking with a few of the guys, like hearing about Jalen and kind of his approach, and there was a feeling that maybe, again, it's not a knock because he's working his ass off. He was working his ass off, but this feeling that, he was a little uptight, that he was like, he's working too hard and kind of isolating himself from the guys because he had his head in the film. And, you, as a quarterback, you got to be with your guys. You got to establish those relationships, and you got to be, be personable and be one of them. And there's a feeling that he's made more of an effort to connect with the guys this year. And he's, his relationship with his teammates is stronger than ever right now, which I think, again, will pay off as the season goes.
Yeah, that's huge.
And that's interesting. But what about his relationship with the head coach? What about Nick Sirianni? And
yeah.
I mean, anything short of going to the NFC Championship, I mean, will he be back next year? Do you see any way that he could be back next year?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you said, I think that's what it's going to take. I think that's the expectation for this team. You got to at least make it back to that conference championship game. That's the standard that you set. And it's tough because, again, the toughest thing with Nick right now is what is going on with the play calling. I think, unbelievable. He said he's relinquishing it, and then he's saying he has a hand in it. He's comparing himself to his wife being a backseat driver, and that's what he's doing to Kellen Moore. You can't. You either gotta call the plays, or you gotta let your guy call the plays.
Exactly.
You really can't do it right like that. It was also interesting, just like having this experience going to 20 different training camps and just picking guys' brains on what works offensively and the changes that have been good. One of the most common things we heard is just having one consistent voice and consistent messaging about the offense matters so much. And you'd be surprised how rare it can be to have that. And I think that's part of the issue going on right now too. I think they have to figure out who the guy is, what the messaging is, and be in line and keep it simple.
Yeah, stick to it, right? Stick to it.
Yep.
Yeah.
Going around the league a bit because you and Kay cover it all. What's your biggest surprise so far out of the league, team-wise?
It's a great question too, because there's been a lot. The one I think that most people have that I'm not surprised by is Washington.
That's where we were going.
Jaden, oh man. Honestly, I'm not saying this. I'm not saying it has like when going to practice there and watching him, the ball didn't hit the ground.
Crazy.
It was. Yeah. I've never seen anything like that with the rookie quarterback. And even I had big expectations for him, but he's exceeded even what I expected coming. I expected more, kind of rookie moments than we've seen. To only have one turnover in 4 games is insane.
We would love that here. We would love that.
Oh.
On the flip side, who's the biggest disappointment from your perspective?
The biggest disappointment right now, I would have to say the Jaguars have had just disastrous.
I know.
There's so much talent there. They could have I think the way they were looking in that first game against Miami up front, that defensive line could be one of the best in the league. Obviously, Trevor Lawrence, the talent that he has, and it is just completely fallen apart. And it makes you wonder if they should have moved on from Doug Peterson after the collapse last year, because he's clearly not resonating with them anymore. And at least they should have moved on from Press Taylor, because that's been a disaster, and it was a disaster at the end of last year.
Yeah.
But you're hoping with everything they have in that team is way too talented to be 0-4. And you've seen flashes of it. I mean, that they had the Dolphins at full strength on the ropes, blew that one. They had the Texans even on the ropes last week and couldn't get it. So it's, to me, that one, it's disgusting to see them sitting at 0-4 with what they have at their disposal.
Yeah, for sure. We know a lot about Press Taylor and Dougie P.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, we love Dougie P, but it's interesting
Press Taylor's garbage.
Horrible.
Complete garbage.
It's interesting how it fizzled out for Dougie P after about the same amount of time here.
Yeah.
About the same trajectory almost, except he didn't obviously win a chip.
Play calling gets stale. Messaging got stale.
It's very intriguing. For me, I would say Joe Burrow and the Bengals have been
I was going to say the Bengals.
Was that where you were going?
I would say the Bengals
there.
have been a severe disappointment.
Now, who do you think, Matt, will be the biggest bounce back after a tough start this year?
I do think it'll be the Bengals, and that's why I didn't say them, because
I hear you.
There have been encouraging things there. Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind this year. He's been fantastic, and now with Higgins back, you saw the difference even just last week. I know it was the Panthers, but still, like, he's got everything going right now. The defense does concern me. And I think this week we could see them fall to 1-4, and I still think they bounce back.
Crazy.
I just think the Ravens.
That's what they do.
Yeah, the Ravens are a horrendous matchup for them because they're thin on the D line. They can't really stop the run. Sam Hubbard is kind of a shell of himself right now. Losing DJ Reader was massive. Yeah. So they've had a lot of issues stopping the run, and this Ravens run game is unlike anything I've ever seen. Now
I know, man. Wow. I mean, Derrick Henry, obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer.
Hey, he had like 200 yards rushing the other day.
He's having the best year. And he's having the best year of his career right now. Like we went through some of the numbers on the show today. Like he's averaging 6 yards a carry. He's on pace for another 2,000-yard season. He's on pace for 26 touchdowns. And I don't think this is one of these things that defenses are going to be able to adjust to. Maybe they slow him down a little, but then Lamar is going to beat you. I think it took him a few weeks to get comfortable with the read option stuff and running that kind of a scheme. But he's settling in now, obviously, and it's terrifying. And if you want to stack the box, like, they have enough that they can beat you in this passing game too. So they're going to be a problem this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about Derrick Henry being obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer, I heard a great comparison to him with Eric Dickerson. And they showed a side-by-side. I forget what I was watching, a side-by-side of them both running. They looked identical almost with their strides. Yeah. And Eric Dickerson, just one of the greatest individual seasons of all time at running back. Who is your top running back of all time in terms of, I guess you could say physicality and elusiveness? Who's your top guy all time?
I mean, my favorite of all time was Barry.
Me too.
I mean,
fair enough.
There's nothing like watching him run.
No,
and I don't think we're ever going to see anybody like him again. I think he was a one of one, and I think I wish we could have gotten to see him on some better teams, but still, I mean, what he was able to do and just the highlights, it's poetry watching him run. It really is.
Yeah, those clips there's that one clip that everyone's so familiar with where he like cuts all the way back across the field. He runs like 90 yards to gain like 15 or whatever.
Yes.
Just absolutely amazing. Nobody ever will be like Barry. Lastly, before we let you go, Matt, and we really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us, a way too early Super Bowl prediction. Go.
Oh, man. I do think that this is the year that Kansas City stumbles. I think these injuries, it's going to be hard, and even with Patrick Mahomes to navigate all of this.
Yeah.
So the way that Baltimore is looking right now, it's hard for me to pick against them with everything they got going.
Yep.
I think this is finally the year they kind of get over that hump. So I think we see Baltimore. And on the NFC side,
it's hard in the NFC. It's a crapshoot.
It really is. But while the defense still concerns me, they don't look quite right. I still think the Niners. I know they haven't gotten off to their best start. They've had some injuries, but quietly, Brock Purdy is looking even better than he has.
Yes.
He's played very, very well so far. He showed that he can do it without all those guys. That Rams game was one of the best games I've ever seen him play, and the defense, blew it at the end, but and all the drop passes didn't help. But I think he's playing at a really high level right now. I think that defense still has enough talent that they can figure it out a little bit. So I think Niners Ravens Super Bowl right now.
A rematch of the Super Bowl where the lights went out.
Yes.
Yep. And in New Orleans again.
That was
right?
Harbaugh versus Harbaugh.
That would make sense. Oh, that's a great one. Yeah, Harbaugh versus Harbaugh.
That was a good one, yeah.
That's right. Okay, well, since you mentioned you're a Giants fan, before we let you go, I'll do it one more time. Daniel Jones, in or out?
I mean, he's played better this year. You have to say that, and I think getting him a number one receiver for the first time in his entire career makes a big difference. But you can see, you go back to that Cowboys game, there were so many plays left out there that, a top quarterback makes. And I don't think he's as horrible as the reputation he gets.
That's
when you
fair.
give a quarterback no weapons and no offensive line, it's hard to succeed. And what he did in 2022, a lot of the credit has to go to Dable for that. But you got to give him some credit for getting that team to the playoffs with, really just Saquon and not a lot of people to throw to. So,
Right.
I don't think he's awful, but I think the Giants can do better. And I do think they did the right thing. Getting Malik Neighbors now.
Yeah.
He's amazing. He's unbelievable. He's already one of the best receivers in the league. And I think, because again, if you go, let's say, they were able to somehow make that trade up for Drake May, you're just sticking him in the same situation that Daniel Jones was in with nobody to work with. So I think you had to get the infrastructure in place a little bit first. And then next year, I think we see them, make a big move for a quarterback.
Yeah, the NFC East is looking a little tougher in the coming
It's
years
tougher.
with Jaden
tougher.
Daniels and with Neighbors now.
Power has shifted.
It
a
has.
little bit.
It has, and it's going to be on Jalen Hurts to turn it around, Tech. Matt, we appreciate it once again. We love what you do with Kay on FanDuel, and hopefully the Eagles can bounce back, and we're talking about a whole different narrative next time.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Appreciate you guys having me. Always love coming on.
Need a better betting app? You need Rhythm.
Rhythm makes it easy to find AI-backed picks and player props for every single NFL, NBA, and game. You can build custom sports betting models or have AI build them for you and start getting recommended bets, score predictions, and more that will help you become a better bettor. Download Rhythm now and start getting free picks daily. Rhythm is the place for data-backed props and picks. RITHMM.
Rhythm is a proud partner of the Vit Alumni Podcast. Have a gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. It's time for Prem's Picks.
These games are a blowout, a human lock. You can bet your children's unborn children on these games.
It's Prem's NFL Picks. How'd we do this?
Sir, 2 out of 3, Tech.
Here we go.
The Lions over the Seahawks. Good game, by the way.
Good game.
No
Yes.
defense.
No.
Where was the defense?
Non-existent.
That's concerning for the Lions and the Seahawks.
Yeah, yes.
But I got it right. Lions won. Commanders over the Cards. Man, did I hit that one.
Yeah.
Man.
That's a good one.
And I only missed Packers over Vikings by 2 points.
Yeah.
That was a weird game.
That
was a good
weird
comeback.
game.
They were getting blown out. Love did play, and he didn't play poorly, but they didn't win the game.
Yeah, he turned the ball over.
Yeah, that's true. You can't do that. But I'm 5-4 through
There
4
you go.
weeks of football.
Over 500. It's tough.
It could be worse.
It's a weird season anyway.
It is. There's a lot of weird games. But my strategy worked last week. Remember I said last week you want to go with the opposite of what people think will happen.
Yeah.
And it got me 2 out of 3, I think.
There you go.
Even though most people probably had the Lions beating the Seahawks.
Yeah, I had the Lions beating the Seahawks, and I had Washington winning, so.
I got some interesting ones this week, Tech. Here are Week 5's NFL locks.
Locks.
Andy Dalton is quarterbacking the Carolina Panthers.
Yeah.
And you know what? He hasn't looked bad. He's actually played well. They looked pretty good last week against a good Bengals team.
Yeah.
They gave the Bengals a run for their money. This week, they go to Chicago to play Caleb Williams and the Bears, who only won last week because Swift had the best day of his Bears career so far.
Yeah.
Really good day running the ball.
Yeah, finally they used him.
They used him. I know their strategy is probably to try to do the same thing. Andy Dalton is a wily veteran. The Panthers are 1-3. I think they're a little better with him on the field. I think they're more confident. I think the Panthers go into Soldier Field and win the game.
Really?
I do. I think the Panthers win the game. This is a big pick for me. Chicago's 4-point favorites. With that line,
I think the Bears win this one, but okay.
I think the Panthers go in and get it done. I think Andy Dalton is good enough to just win the game.
Turn their season around.
Well, let's not go overboard. Give me the Panthers money line in Chicago.
This is a lock.
That's a lock. Next tech, going right back to the Packers because I think that they're a 2-2 football team that is better than their record. Kind of like the Eagles are a 2-2 football team that I think is probably better than our record. They go to LA to play the Rams, who are a big disappointment. You know, their defense has not been nearly what it has been in previous years, obviously losing a Hall of Fame player like Aaron Donald. Packers go into LA. They're 3-point favorites, and I think that that's correct. I think they win the game.
Me too, yeah.
Give me Jordan Love and Jaden Reed, who are a great combo, by the way. They're really going to be good for many years, Love to Reed.
Yeah.
Dynamic. I like the Packers to win the game in LA in a stadium that two teams play in. Lock. Lastly, Tech, this is a fun one. We talked about this with Matt on the vet line tonight. The Jaguars are very disappointing, 0-4. Probably better than their record indicates, though.
Yeah.
You know, just a tough schedule. You got the Colts going to Jacksonville. Desperate Jaguars team. Colts have been a mixed bag so far, 2-2. Division game.
Yeah.
Always weird games. I think the Jaguars and Dougie P get their first win in Jacksonville.
Oh!
Sunny day. 1 o'clock kickoff. The Jags are actually 3-point favorites in this one, Tech. So I'm not the only one thinking this way. I think desperation plays a big role in the NFL when guys are really, really playing for their seasons.
Yeah.
And I think that Dougie P says the right things before the game to get it done. Give me the Jags at home to get off the schneid and out of the cellar of the NFL over the Colts, and that's a lock. To recap, Tech, we got an interesting trio of picks this week. Give me the Panthers and the rejuvenated, red-headed phenom Andy Dalton to go into Soldier Field, a tough place to win, and beat Caleb Williams, who's a disappointing rookie in my opinion, in Chicago. There you have that one. Lock! Next tech, give me the Packers to go into LA and beat the Rams. Stafford is on decline. Defense isn't the same. I like the Packers for sure to get that W. Lock! And lastly, Tech, you heard it here a second ago. We talked about it with Matt. The Jaguars 0-4. I think they do enough to squeak out a win against the Colts, who are a good football team. 1 o'clock kickoff, sunny day in Jacksonville. Well, I think it is.
Yeah.
Jaguars climb into 1-4. Lock! This has been Prem's NFL Picks.
Well, it's time. It's Phillies postseason baseball.
We'll know a lot next week. We will know a lot.
Yes, we
and
will.
Pending a Game 5 or potentially what the schedule looks like, maybe we release Saturday. We'll see how it goes.
Yep. It looks like Milwaukee. It looks like they will be coming to the bank. 4:08 start tomorrow.
It does look that way right now.
Zach Wheeler on the mound.
Woo, let's go.
Let's go. Go Phils. We will see you next week.
Vet Alumni.